or even non-urgent that you want to share? Okay. I think we can probably work through this agenda hopefully pretty efficiently. I don't think there's anything super complicated here, although I'll be excited to hear your feedback. So Tina said she did drop the agenda in the chat. Do you all see it? I do not see it, but it may not mean anything that I don't see it. Does anyone else see it in the chat?
No.
Tina, I think you have to put it in again.
I just
Okay.
Oh,
but
there it is.
it's not bulleted or numbered because it got translated weird in the Google document. But at any rate, it's there. All right, well, let's get rolling. Are you recording? Oh, you are. Okay, great. All right. Well, Lana, do you want to kick us off with the Poet Laureate updates? I apologize I couldn't make it on Friday, but and I didn't even think to speak to you about it when we saw each other on Saturday, but I'm excited to hear how that meeting went.
Sure thing. Yeah, so on Friday, our working group for the Poet Laureate project met with Councilmember Fletcher and Council Vice President Jenkins. Really, the goal of that meeting was to talk about a timeline for next steps. So where we stand right now is that we're beginning community outreach. So the document that we shared at the last meeting had a list of community partners and organizations that we wanted to begin our outreach with. Hopefully, within those conversations, we would also get more recommendations for anyone else that we should be bringing to the table. And just in general, the request was, we are starting a working group for a Poet Laureate project for Minneapolis. Do you have interest in joining a working group, being a larger part of the process, or being on an email list for updates? Right? So that gave people a couple of different ways that they can engage. We've heard back from a few community partners, got some enthusiasm from Loft Literary Center so far. We heard from MSP 826 that we reached out to. And I didn't do any of the Facebook or Meetup outreach because I'm not on the socials. So Jack was going to be helming some of that. And so he's going to be updating us when we meet next. Today, we were meeting to set our next time to get together to review the notes from council members about the timeline and share any feedback that we got so far from community partners, hopefully inviting them to our next meeting too. So that's a little bit of the broad overview on where we stand. Some of the feedback we got from council members was that, you know, our next steps could be taking this to the press, you know, making a more formal announcement. These are a lot of the circulating questions, right? A little bit out of my personal wheelhouse. So that will be things that we develop as a working group together. But that will be the next stage, to have some sort of press release that this is something that we're thinking of. But the general feedback and temperature from the meeting was that we're in a really good place. You know, both Councilmember Fletcher and Council Vice President Jenkins said that, you know, that the working document that we shared was better than they had expected for a starting point. And that it can only go better from there when we have more community involvement. So that's a really good positive. And I'm just super excited about hearing about other ideas that come and are floated at our table and where it can kind of elevate to. But I think it's a strong place to start to have a Poet Laureate get their ground and bearings for a year or so before welcoming in a mentorship program that I hope will be really exciting for a youth Poet Laureate as well. That's my general overview. I welcome any of your questions too, or any feedback on next steps for reaching out to the press. Maybe perhaps Mary or Tina, you have a little bit more of a knowledge base on what that could look like too.
Or even what the limitations or what we are capable of doing in regard to a media release.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so too. The other thing is I just, you know, will be really transparent in saying that I imagine, oh, hello. That's cute. A little cameo there. I will be transparent just saying that I'm sure that they are maybe a little anxious for that to happen before the election. I don't want to assume things, but and that's coming up very quickly. So we might not be able to meet that expectation. But Mary, do you have any comments about if we were to do a press release about the new program?
Just a quick clarification that it would probably be after elections because everyone is so, you know, like we did talk about that in the timeline, that it would be, you know, probably swiftly on the heels of that, but before mid-November. So, you know, you don't want to get in the process of the election cycle.
That makes it a little bit less, I think, complex, perhaps. That's probably good. Good. I'm glad you guys talked about that. That's good.
I think they're big. interest is going to be trying to get this in the budget, right?
Right.
And so they are going to be moving money around in November and December. And so that's their big interest. I don't think in terms of the election anyone cares about a poet laureate. All they care about is whether or not we should have cops.
Okay.
That's really the only thing that's getting any traction.
Okay.
You're right. It's more of a money question, I believe, too.
Okay. So, Mary, logistically speaking, would the MAC be able to lead their own press release draft and get approval from Fletcher and Jenkins and then submit a draft to Sarah McKenzie or what?
Proactive publicity goes to John Lewis, and so it would be MAC doesn't, nobody gets to do their own press release, right? It's the city of Minneapolis press release, or in this case, it would be a community planning and economic development press release.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, and the announcement would be that there's going to be a poet laureate.
Well, one note to add is that when we meet with the full commission, it would be helpful if we have, put on the agenda for October under the header of poet laureate, that we are making some formal recommendation, like Minneapolis Arts Commission is recommending a poet laureate for the city of Minneapolis. Here's an outline of what it would look like. So if there is anything that's in the public domain, if you will, like when we're reaching out to community partners, it was clarified that we're not going to see like a header on the city website, right? It's going to be something like perhaps the, Minneapolis Creates, like the arts department has a listing of the MAC initiative, once we have a full commission vote on it. So I'm thinking more that could be the press release, it could be not anything quite as formal as needing documentation. I guess I'm not sure what's needed. To me, I think a full commission vote would be needed, and then what the press would look like from there is my question.
So I think what would be really good is for a commissioner and me to meet with communications and ask them what they think the publicity should look like.
I see you writing, Lana. Are you going to take that away as an action?
I'll take it. Mary, I'll email you and we'll set it up.
I'm happy to set it up. I think, it's going to be the kind of thing. There's also this weird sensitivity, like, right, why is CPED putting out a big arts push when there's supposed to be this new department, but the new department isn't really happening until next year. And so, I think we should talk to the person in city communications and for CPED and ask him what he thinks, and he might want to go back to his other colleagues in the coordinator's office. So it might take a little while, so we should probably do it soon, Lana.
Yeah. Did you want to do that formal adoption of the recommendations at this coming meeting, Lana? Or do you want to do it in November?
I think it couldn't hurt just to have it done within October, since we're already in the know that we're working on it and moving it forward. And since there's so many budget concerns that are going to come up in November and December, I think if we can do a formal adoption, that would be great.
If that's the case, then can you give Tina whatever is the latest, greatest edited, whatever language for the commissioners to review, just so they have, I know we've been talking about this for months, and if anyone felt like they didn't know what this was, it would be really strange. But at the same time, it might just be nice to just show, like, here's the working material. If you want to reference this, we will be taking a vote to formally adopt the recommendation to develop a poet laureate program for the statement. Like, also, let's think about, like, what is that motion? Like, what are we motioning to do? We're motioning to create a formal work group to develop a poet laureate program for the city of Minneapolis, right? Like something like that.
Sure. Okay. Yep. I can send that over to Tina. No problem.
Cool. And then Tina, if you don't mind including that with whatever our final agenda is for the meeting, does that sound okay?
Yes. And then I was going to ask Lana, is there any documents or anything that you want me to attach? You can send that to me as well.
Yes, yes. Jack has a working Google document that we shared at the last meeting that I'll be sending to you in an email, Tina, so that you can have that to link for all commissioners again as a reminder.
Mary, can you do me a favor and just type in the chat how that would look on the agenda? Because it's probably too, I'm such a wordy person. You're muted.
Sorry, I was texting my sister about my mom's physical therapy appointment, so I was not paying attention. So tell me again what you want me to type in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
okay.
it's okay. You know how it is.
I definitely do.
Just tell me what you want me to do again.
So my question was that we are going to ask for a formal adoption or for a motion to adopt the recommendation to move forward with a working group to develop a Poet Laureate program for the city of Minneapolis. So we want to vote on that. And I'm just asking you, what is the simple way to have that appear on the agenda under the Poet Laureate updates? Just adopt?
So it's not an update. An update is not an action item. So the action item would be Poet Laureate work group. And there would be a presentation by Lana, and there would be a recommendation underneath the item, and the recommendation on the agenda, it would say recommended action : I'll put this in the chat, approve Poet Laureate work group. Is that what you want?
Yes, please.
Or approve the work plan for the Poet Laureate work group? What are you approving?
The development of the work groups, right?
I think it's the plan that we have outlining a Poet Laureate for the city of Minneapolis so that we can make it a formal recommendation.
Okay. Great. I love it. So actionable.
Oh, wait. I just spelled Laureate. It's a Poet Laureate work group.
Okay. Presentation. And okay, I've got that.
Lucy, I see a hand. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, just a question. So it would be Mary, you were talking about you and Lana meeting with the CPED communications person. Is there some role that Fletcher and Jenkins want in that, some visibility in that? I mean, I get it's CPED because it's the Arts Commission, but what
So
are we going to bump up against them?
That's
like,
what we
do they want
to too? So we would be strategizing about that. Like we would meet with, so let's say, and there would probably be further conversation, right? So we would say the Arts Commission is doing this with Jenkins and Fletcher, and they want to get a little publicity out about the fact that they are doing this, and
Right.
and then we would brainstorm what that publicity can look like, right? And then like, let's say it's a press release. I have a feeling it's not going to be a press release. They hardly ever do press releases. But let's say it's a press release. They might get quotes from them, right?
Okay.
But they're going to think of how this fits into the overall communication plan for the month, right? And timing of it, and they're not going to probably want to do anything until after the election.
Okay.
And yeah.
All right, thanks.
But they'll also know what, they have a communication plan about what items they talk about in the media what week. They will want to pick a week where it doesn't conflict with anything, like in a big way, right?
Okay.
So, but they'll, they're very nice people. They'll figure it out.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mary. That's exactly the type of timeline guidance I was hoping for. So I really appreciate your input on that, and I'll reach out for next steps.
How do you spell Laureate? Sorry.
No, okay. This is helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Laureate, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are we anything else Poet Laureate related? That was very efficient conversation. Thanks, you guys. And thank you, Lana, again for this heavy lift and all the work that you're doing. Like, it's it's really awesome to see you in action again, like that, all this stuff. So thanks for, I know it's a lot to coordinate, and coordinating people's schedules and all that kind of stuff has been kind of a chore too. So thank you.
Most welcome. It's exciting work. So thanks for keeping it on the agenda and moving it forward.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments about Poet Laureate? I think we're good. Okay. The next item is the survey questions. I guess I got a little bit of feedback from Mandy, who I think she was kind of saying like we should use SurveyMonkey, and the reason why I opted not to use it, or I'm suggesting that we don't use that, is just because they wanted to charge for a subscription, and I just was like, ugh, I don't really feel like paying for a subscription for one survey, and I don't want to try to get reimbursement or any of that kind of stuff, if that's okay, to be kind of lazy about it. So I was like, could we just ask people to reply via email? I mean, Jeff, do you have something?
Yeah, I think we can do what you're suggesting. We did SurveyMonkey through Lisa, and she has her company has an account, and she was very gracious for the access and engagement group. So I don't know if that, I'm good with just filling out a questionnaire too, but just think about that. You have to talk to Lisa, but
Yeah.
she did give it to us.
That is cool, and we could do that. I was hoping that we would get our.
You guys, we have a SurveyMonkey.
We do.
You can use ours.
Hey, helps to bring this stuff up. Okay. I guess so. I just dropped all these questions in the chat, and I wanted to take a moment to just kind of, skim over them really quickly, if it's okay with you guys. And I think I had it in my mind that we were going to ask people to respond before we meet. And then I could aggregate the information and give like a summary when we meet in October. And I don't know if that is too aspirational, but the method to my madness is that I'm kind of pressure cookering this like work plan 2022 process, because we are in Q4 now, and I feel like it's going to blast past us if we don't kind of make a really serious effort right now to get to December and have a finalized work plan. We certainly can extend finalizing our work plan into January if we feel that is really necessary to do a good job and to, but so anyway, that's kind of the method to my madness, is that we would get feedback from folks who would say like, here's the stuff that's engaged me the most, here's where I see the most opportunity. Like everybody could kind of, and I don't think anyone needs to like give really exhaustive answers, but it just might help us as sort of being in a leadership role and on our ALTs to be able to have the feedback help to shape what our draft work plans are going to be. That's the way I'm thinking. So question number 1 is, can I just send this out via email and ask for people to give me their best responses, take 10 to 15 minutes to think about this and write me back by next Tuesday, so that I can aggregate the information on Wednesday and give a high level kind of overview for everyone on what the responses were? Am I being really unreasonable?
I like that idea, because I think the more time you give people, the more they're going to take. So I think it just forces people to think quickly about it. These are questions we've kind of all been thinking about anyway. So I say go for it for next week, and just have the more time you give people, the longer answers you're going to get. So I would just keep going like you're planning.
Yay! All right, cool. And I'm seeing nods and thumbs. Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then are y'all okay, just in the interest of time, like I think I'll send this out tomorrow morning. That will at least give people a little bit less than a week to get it accomplished, and I know that Tina will be sending the agenda likely on Friday. So they don't have to come at the exact same time, even though I hope that's not too jostling to anyone to receive 2 MAC emails in 1 week. But this survey will be just its own separate, and people can reply to just me, and I'll be real clear about those instructions. That sound okay? Okay, now let's look at the questions and just make sure that I so Mary has this kind of famous quote that I love, that she loves to edit me. I tend to be super wordy and flowery and like go on and stuff. So I don't know. I was trying to be direct and concise and like hit all the areas that we really are interested in. So question number one is we'll just go through this and tell me if it's clear and if it could be more efficiently articulated. But what do you feel are the greatest priorities of the new department? Perhaps articulate 1 to 3 considerations briefly. I mean, do you all feel like you would be able to list 3 considerations? Is that may not be realistic? Lucy, you have your hand up.
Well, and I'm sorry, I thought I had gotten back to you with this comment. I've been a little preoccupied in the last couple of weeks, so I didn't send an email back to you. But is that supposed to be priorities based on like the stated mission and objectives of the new department?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would be clear about that in the question, specifically look, and it wouldn't hurt to get those again. I don't have the ordinance at the hand. So I would
the question.
I would just make it clear that that's what we're supposed to respond to. And I wouldn't, I'd say the top 2 or something. I mean, there aren't that many of them. And if you get 3 and we're all over the board, it's going to be hard to get to some consensus. So I'd say 1 or 2.
Lana, do you feel like that makes sense, like to link in the question, I think to just look back at the reference material and then think about like, what do you think the top 2 priorities for the department are? Do you like the idea of a general response to that? Or do you feel like it would be more efficient if we asked in relationship to the MAC? Because I do ask that in question number 2, but I was kind of interested in just thinking about like, when you think about a Department of Art and Cultural Affairs, what do you feel, just like generally speaking, based on everything that you know, like what, in your opinion, should be of the greatest priority? I think I feel like I kind of know what a lot of people will likely say, but I just thought it might be worth doing a quick temperature check with the commissioners and seeing like, what is the most important, what should be priority number 1? For this.
I like it because I feel that it means MAC has to consider how we fit into the ordinance and what's already been stated. So it seems to me like question 1 is, let's look at the whole ordinance and which ones do you think are like some of the priorities for tackling? Question 2 seems a little bit more like, where is MAC's role in assisting and facilitating those? Because it might not be the top priority. There might not be a lot of overlap with what the top priorities of the department are to create here. So I think the second one is situating and positioning MAC for the next work plans ahead. It made sense to me, but I agree with Lucy that we should also attach the ordinance just for a reference.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, cool. That's helpful. And I'll limit it to 1 to 2 considerations briefly I think to Lucy's point, if I have 16 different things, that could just be more complicated than it's worth. So, did you have another comment, Lucy?
I do. So what do you think are the kinds of answers you're going to get to number 2? What do you feel will position the MAC best in the development of the new department? Do you feel it'll be like, a better relationship with council members, more outreach with the community, or what are those action steps in the second one, or is it how we do our work? Or
it might be to your point, it might be a little too complex for the general commission, right? Because that's almost like a strategy question. Like my feeling is like Lana's been doing a lot of strategy on our behalf, right? Like one-on-ones with Golgoon and Danielle and maybe the interim or whatever. So I feel like Lana's been kind of running strategy on this. So yeah, maybe this question really should be, how might the MAC contribute to the development of the new department? Like what are some, I don't know, help me out here, I guess.
Yeah, like, that could be, I was thinking also, I mean, if we are having a retreat, that to me is a question that's really best answered in conversation, in my opinion, with other people. If we come to some consensus, what we think are the top 2 or 3 priorities in the department for our work, then it's a next conversation about, and how do we do that work best? But I I think it's more fruitful if we've got a common understanding or shared agreement on what a couple of priorities are, and then to strategize. So
Maybe
if we're going to do the retreat, to me, that would be the next, that would be the question for the retreat. Like, okay, this is what everyone felt, this is where we are. How do we work now to do that?
That's great. I think that's really good feedback.
I don't know.
Anybody else feel strongly about that? To strike item number 2 and save that for a deeper discussion, just because it involves potential strategy. And okay, all right, let's do that. Do we want to ask anything else about the department, or probably that first question is the most important kind of overarching question? Okay. The third question is, what do you think our greatest accomplishments were this past year, and what would you suggest we include if we created a year in review report? I kind of keep hinting at the fact that we may do this, maybe we don't, but I in my mind, what I'm imagining is that when we present our 2022 work plan, it is accompanied by a 2021 year in review, so that it's kind of like this at a glance, comprehensive, like, here's what we're going to do in 2022, and here's what we did in 2021 that's worth noting. So I thought maybe combining those two so that it kind of is framed in the way that I am imagining utilizing the information. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, who would get the report, right? Would this go to the council members, or would it just go on the record? Just curious how you've done it in the past. Okay.
So the work plan gets, ideally, it doesn't always happen 100%, but the work plan is something that we discuss with elected and get feedback and then bring it back and say, you know, in an effort for them to understand the MAC better and to understand our work groups better, because they're fairly new, they're just only 2 years old. It's like, this is a kind of an exercise in socializing our role and what we intend to do. So yeah, so our elected, but also I think it would be nice if it were a public document as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think so. Yeah,
I agree.
Mm-hmm. So is number 3 okay to keep kind of those sandwiched together? What were our greatest accomplishments and what would you include in a year in review? Because they may not be the same exact answers, but they kind of go together. Is that too complicated, or let me just overthink that for a while? Sorry.
I think they might be the same answers myself, but I haven't been on the commission long enough to know that. So it's fine. I think it's fine.
Let's just simplify it, and I can explain when I give the summary. I'll just strike the year in review piece because it'll make people be like, what is that? So I'll just take that out. What do you think our greatest accomplishments were this past year? Number 4, what has engaged you the most in regard to your role on the MAC? I'm really interested in hearing about that because I do think that we're going to get some really cool feedback. And people clearly have very different self-interest and have had, some people have served on panels, some people have worked on policy, some people, you know, it's just been a really interesting and again, very complicated year. So that'll be cool. Number 5 is, what are you most excited about moving forward? Goals for 2022, maybe we strike that, or maybe we strike the what are you most excited about. Maybe it's just what goals can you envision for 2022. Would that be more helpful for our purposes? Okay. Yeah. And then what do you see as challenges and our opportunities for improvement? That's a really broad way of asking that, but hopefully people will feel comfortable to give authentic answers about that, because there always is room for improvement. And then I did put in just ideas for filling our vacancies. It's just kind of a chronic, evergreen type issue that we're experiencing, and all boards and commissions are experiencing, but you just never know if there's a creative idea out there that someone might have unless you ask. And so maybe people are out of ideas. Maybe people this has been a broken record. I'm not sure, but I just thought I would, as long as we're asking people for feedback, that it was worth asking. And then just, of course, like the end question is just any other feedback or comments. So does that feel concise enough to kind of do the job that we need it to do and not be overcomplicated? All right, cool. Thank you for your help with that. I appreciate it a lot. Okay, so the next item is the proposed cadence. I do feel like I have overcomplicated this unintentionally, but I will explain. So clearly a work plan process is really, it's a bit of a North Star, but it's just a way to try to guide some actionable goals. And it was really important to me that we actually try to put some really good thinking into the process of the work plan, even as we still face a lot of complexity with the pandemic and everything else. I know it changes. It is somewhat of a living document, but it also it has this function that it helps us kind of stay maybe a little bit focused on some things that we might be able to achieve, as well as being this connectivity, being a document that creates a connectivity from the MAC and our elected and other people that may want to know a little bit more about us or understand us a little bit better. And so I kind of, last year, I think it was pretty difficult to navigate the work plan process, and that's okay. And even the year before, we had a great work plan process, and that's when the pandemic happened. And so we were just entering Q2, and everything went upside down. So I'm hoping that we can kind of like get the train back on the track a little bit. And we do have some clear goals for this year. I mean, we talked about, in policy anyway, we talked about how the MAC really asserting themselves in the process of developing the Department of Art and Cultural Affairs makes a lot of sense. And for us to be prioritizing that, I mean, access and engagement, clearly like a community connection to get input from artists and arts group and the public about what priorities they wish for from their departments. Us advocating for a strategic planning process that potentially utilizes a outside facilitator, because my fear, and I'm sure a lot of folks' fear, is that the work will happen in a silo, and a lot of these types of opportunities where we really could be engaging folks and we could be participating and lending capacity to what's they budgeted $300,000, and we don't know if that's staffing, programming, what is it? The terms that they have used have been that it's the money that's been budgeted to develop the department. So who's going to be making those decisions about that budget? Question number one. And how are we going to fit into that? And I do think that us it's for 2 staff members. That's been determined. Golgunai, welcome. You come at the perfect time. Yeah. Okay. So
yes.
So it's for you and Mary, and that's it? Or
No. The mayor allocated $300,000 to fund 2 staff members for 2 specific program areas. One is for engagement, and the other one is for, I'm trying to remember the exact wording, but it's escaping me, but it's something to do with arts and business. So that's what the money is for.
Okay. And is there, this would be a good time to ask you, do you know what the plans are for the development of the department? Like, is there going to be a process that you're aware of?
Well, no, no one shared anything with me. I am aware that a job description is being written for the director, and I don't know if there's going to be an interim. And certainly the director's position has not been funded, so there's no money for a director. And I just honestly, I think it's all going to happen. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen in December. So I am aware that there are council members that wish to find the funding. I don't know how they will, but there are those that do. And it's going to have to happen during the budget markup process. So those and Mary has also been aware of the job description that's being written, but that's all I know. I have no idea where the money's coming from for the new director's salary. I have no idea where the money's coming from for any additional funding. Presumably, if there's no funding and there's no director,
then there's very little work that can be done.
There's no department.
Although I have been directed to go ahead with the job description for one of the staff positions, because one of them would land in my office, the creative city making staff position. The other one hasn't been created. There's no sort of job structure for it. You have to make these things, you have to build them brick by brick. So that work probably would land in my bucket if it gets approved next year. But I have been told to go ahead with the other one since the staff position already exists, the structure already exists, and I can go ahead and hire in January.
Has anyone proposed any strategic planning for the department?
That would be premature without the leadership.
Right. How do you feel about the MAC advancing proactively?
Honestly, I don't. So, and Mary, please chime in here about rules. I've never been involved in the creation of a new department, but I would imagine any type of creation would involve hiring people, would involve internal work. I don't know if a volunteer commission would have any legal role or would be allowed to have any legal role in the creation of a new department. Hiring is entirely up to department heads, and arts commissions don't get involved in hiring decisions.
Well, just a little
commissions. Sorry, commissions. I'm not aware of any commissions. So for me, it's a rules question. It would be asking the city clerk. I just don't know. I honestly don't know. I feel somewhat. I would have to learn more, and Mary probably has a better handle on it because I believe you've been through this before, Mary.
I think it really depends on how much people want to hear from the Arts Commission, and that depends on who the leadership is, right? But I don't think there isn't any harm in the Arts Commission just saying, we're the body that advises the council and the mayor, and this is some vision that we have, and it's going to be all new leadership, and I think as long as you're diplomatic in it, I think, and I also do think you have something to be concerned about, right? Like you're kind of like who's going to staff you? So yeah. I think it's, and I think that the players are not necessarily aware of those kinds of issues. And so for you to say, hey, as far as I know, there's not a clerk in the coordinator's office, right? So
no.
So
and
I think it's okay to say, and we have a vision. I mean, your job is to bring forward community voice to the city related to arts and culture. I mean, that's your job. It's in the ordinance. And till the ordinance goes away, I think the ordinance is your directive.
Yeah, and just to note that this is not going to be part of the coordinator's administration. So this department is not tied to the coordinator's administration. So that means this department is a standalone thing. It's its own thing. And so the only staff that we have in the ordinance is the department head. And then, of course, the rest of us who would be underneath that person. So there's no clerical staff, there's no administrative staff, it's all program staff. So that's the challenge. That's the biggest challenge.
And that's why the Arts Commission should say something.
Yeah. Now, I think we're all concerned about it. We're all confused about what January 1st will look like and whether and maybe an email to Andrea Brennan and the coordinator would be a good idea, because we have a new coordinator, because essentially this department will report to the coordinator. So I have no idea what has been happening. I don't know where the coordinator is in decision making. I just know that a job is being, job description is being put together. I don't know any timelines of hiring and who the interim would be, because without Danielle, that connection is gone.
So I can just imagine that some of this clarity could actually be articulated in our work plan. Understand the framework of the department and the roles that are going to be a part of the department. We'll brainstorm this better as an exec committee and all of our ALT groups, but to exclude the commission's intent to participate in the new department would be, in my opinion, it wouldn't make any sense. It makes no sense. It's like we've got all these people that represent all these wards and have very big networks and constituents and are able to bring capacity for input, are able to bring capacity for development, are able to bring policy capacity. So I'm hearing a lack of capacity, and we're bringing capacity. So
we do our job. We have that responsibility. We don't have to ask for permission. So I think we just do what we're appointed to do. It seems, and whatever happens to it beyond there, whatever, it'll get messed in with everything else. But it seems really clear to me. I agree with Mary. I mean, I think it's really clear. Of course, we have something to say about this, and the fact that we've done some thinking about where we fit in it is really important. So we should just not worry about all the other messaging or what other people are going to say about it. Let's just be clear in our own minds, get our shit together, and say it.
And get feedback. I think, Andrea and the new coordinator should be on our list to give us feedback about the work plan. That's fine.
And I think you should go ahead and do that and wait for the dust to settle, because as I said, December is going to be, there's a lot that's going to happen in December during markup. And then the outstanding question is there a new department without funding? I just honestly don't know. So
you can look into the crystal ball and see that. So that's fine.
Sorry, what was that, Joan?
No one expects you to be able to see in a crystal ball and understand what's going to happen.
No, you know what I know, which is very little.
That's fine. I think we can move on. I just wanted to kind of explain the thinking and the strategy behind the work plan and prioritizing the development of the new department and what MAC wishes to see and how we wish to interact with that is what we're going to be mostly focused on. So,
and I think when eventually leadership happens, and whether there is a new department or not, you can step in having your ducks in a row with the new person.
Right.
If anything, I would think it would be a tremendous gift to say this group of passionate people who are appointed on your Arts Commission have given this a lot of thought and have organized around these actionable items to help with the, to help provide capacity and bring in more voices and inclusivity with this process. So, okay. So the idea is that at the October meeting, we will request that ALTs work on their draft goals for November so that we can discuss them in November. So basically, they have from October to November to draft them up. And it would be nice if we could also kind of have an idea about this at our next exec meeting. It doesn't have to be fully drafted, but it's just like, let's get talking about what we think we're dialing down on, and let's talk about it. And that way in the November meeting, we can discuss the drafts, and then the expectation is that the final drafts of the work plan will be due in time for the December executive meeting, so that we can kind of, as leaders of and representing the different groups that are working in a subcommittee fashion, that we can talk about it. and discuss if we have any suggestions, whatever that may be. So that at our December meeting, we will formally adopt the work plan for 2022. And if we are able to accomplish that with the survey information, with getting some feedback, canvassing some of this, boy, will that be a wonderful accomplishment. And I think everyone will feel really good about ending the year that way. So that's that process. Any other feedback, questions? Okay. Item number 7 is just updates from our teams. I know we're going to get a little tight on time right now, but if there are any updates, I feel like I've been involved in quite a few of the conversations this month. So, but maybe for the benefit of Golgun and anybody else, if we want to just go around really quick, and if there's anything top of mind right now that you'd like to share. So we'll start with policy. And I will just share that this conversation we just had about the work plan dominated a lot of the conversation of that small work group, and about how we're going to present ourselves. So Lucy, I don't know if you want to also contribute about the policy meeting that we had and any updates.
Did you say if I do?
Yeah.
I think I missed that one. Is that the one you rescheduled to Friday?
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't able to come on Friday. I still had people in town, so I missed it. So.
I must just feel your presence in those conversations.
I wanted to be there really bad.
Lana, you were there. It was Lana, Ahava, myself, and Mary. That's who was there. So
I think that was a good summation, Joan. I think the work plans are at the forefront right now as we're moving forward.
Okay, perfect. Access and engagement, Jeff, do you have an update for us?
Yes, I do. So three topics I want to talk about. First, kind of the meetings and guest speakers. Angela Two Stars will be joining us for October meeting. And she's fresh off of the new installation at the Walker Sculpture Garden. So that'll be super, super exciting. Crystal was able to snag that. I got the email while I was sitting here. So, I mean, it's fresh off the thing. So I hope we still have time for that and it can work that into the agenda. We do not have anyone yet for November, but we're going to reach out to Capri Theater. I believe they've have some new renovations and they're doing some new things. So that's a target, but we do not have that locked in. So that's topic number 1. Topic number 2 was we did the surveys. Thank you, Golgun and Mary, for sharing the link. And we were okay with the number of surveys coming back. So we got 13 surveys to come back. We gave it a short time period, but
that's good.
So 13 surveys came back. And the nice part was that 11 of them were interested in participating in an artist panel. And I'll get to the artist panel in a second. But overall, the results were very good and very complimentary. There's a couple of, hey, you can do this. So we'll compile the results because they had until the 8th to last Friday. So we're still compiling the results. We'll compile the results and report out, to the commission about what we heard. But just know we talked about it, and in general, they were very good. And then the artist panel, we want to push it back because I think we have a lot of activity kind of going on and still kind of, up in the air, on meet, don't meet. So we wanted to push it back to early to mid-January. We wanted to be public and we wanted to have time, give us a little time to push it out to artist group, to art community groups. Because one of the things in the survey we did find out of how they find out about information from the city is generally one of the biggest areas is through community groups, right? Their art community groups. So, so we'd like to push it out to them, and we're going to plan for it to be virtual. So if something changes, then we can think about it. But just to eliminate the whole, are we going to do it this way? We're going to just plan for virtual and just kind of go from there and try to get as many people in the public. So that was topic 2. I should ask questions on the first. So any questions on any of those 2 topics before I go to my last one?
Will you be sharing survey results? Or-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we got to figure out how to do that for next week. But yeah, it will be some kind of report out, some kind of grid. So we just got, Lisa sent it to us today. So we got to kind of figure out how to socialize it among the commission.
Okay, very cool. That's super great. And it is a good response. And that many people want to participate. I also just want to, little aside, if, moving the panel talk to January, I think that's a good idea. It's obviously, the goal is to achieve the outcomes we're looking for and not to just get things done by a certain date and time. So that's its priority. So that's great that the group is thinking about that. I would just say to include it in your work plan because we can also get a little traction that way. When we canvass with elected, maybe we can interest them in participating or having their aides participate in listening to feedback from artists. So that would be a really cool way to just have all those pieces work together.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'll definitely mention that.
Okay.
And then the last thing was the December meeting. So, originally we had talked about, doing some stuff at, as a big party, kind of a celebration. So we did want to, what we don't know, and so we have an ask and a proposal, and then you guys can tell us is, does it work or it doesn't work. And so what we're looking for is in the December 15th meeting, maybe 30 to 45 minutes on the program where we're going to have a celebration, right? And, whether we have and the agenda is still to be determined, but, maybe this highlight reel of, stuff we could do is part of it, right? We were thinking about maybe inviting a spoken word artist, right? Because we have a little bit of budget for it. It's going to be virtual. So we're not going to spend like we would, on, catering and things like that. So, and then one idea that came up that Mary, I didn't have a chance because I've been traveling. I'm actually in Vegas, so I didn't have a chance in between that meeting and this meeting. I flew across the country, so I didn't have a chance to ask you about this. But so big reveal. One of the asks was, maybe Mary be able to do, whether it's you or your department, a virtual tour of the new building, right? So as part of it. So we could talk kind of, if you guys already have something kind of, already done, maybe we can have an artist talk about one of the works and things like that. But the thing is 30 to 45 minutes of some kind of fun, part of the meeting. Does the meeting go a little longer? Do we, that's the ask. And then can we do a little more effort than normal to get more public involved, in this meeting, because this would be the traditional kind of public meeting, even though it's going to be virtual.
Well, so I'm wondering, so what we're planning right now is we're planning 2 events in December for the new building and the art. And tentatively, we are planning them right now on December 2nd and December 10th. The first thing is an invitation-only thing that the Arts Commission would be invited to, which is mostly to just get the press excited about the art in the new building. And so it would be the press, it would be arts press people and curatorial types and the Arts Commission and the Public Art Advisory Panel and the artists and their fabricators. And it's
December 2nd. Is that what you said, Mary?
We think it's going to be on the 2nd. We're just working on the dates right now, but it would be like during the day. Tristan would facilitate a conversation among some of the artists. We can't have 17-person panel. So, and there probably would be some tour beforehand that would be optional. The second thing is a large public event. We haven't set the date, but we're shopping around Friday, December 10th. We wanted to start it towards the end of the day so employees could come if they want. So we're thinking like 4 o'clock. And then there would be some talking heads like there always are at these dedications, and some music and some food, and artists would be at during some point, artists would be kind of stationed at their works, right? And people could go around and look at them. So that's kind of the plan right now. And Mandy went to the planning meeting, but maybe, it isn't out of the realm of possibility, right? That the Arts Commission's public meeting could overlap with the public event.
Yeah.
Like we could move your meeting that day to just prior to it or something. I don't know if it makes sense. I'm trying to wrap my head around a 10-story party, among other things, and kind of all of the different stakeholders and their needs. And so I'm open to thoughts about that. There is also a virtual tour being created of the building, and the art is on that virtual tour. We are also doing a self-guided brochure.
Would that lasting, the virtual tour, would that be ready by December 15th? Just curious.
I would have to find out, and it's going to be on the whole building. So it's going to talk about a bunch of stuff that art stakeholders might not care about.
Okay.
I'm up for anything.
Okay.
Technically, I give a ton of tours, right? If you want to try to have this event in person and not virtual, we could do that too, right?
Okay, because we were thinking that we couldn't, so that was the premise.
I don't think we can have the MAC meeting in person unless
in December.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd be happy. We also have some. We could have some artists come and talk and show the artists have a lot of presentations, right? They've been presenting on their work for 3 years. They have a lot of presentations. A number of the artists have done virtual interviews with employees. And so they have their presentation from their virtual interviews, and they're really good. And so we could just pick a couple people, maybe one muralist, one ceiling artist, and do that if you want. And we could do that prior to, it would be fun to do that prior to the big public dedication if possible, but we can, I'm open to anything,
So
maybe we'll schedule some time with you, Mary. I know Joan had some ideas too.
Well, so we used to do these Made Here tours, and they were like 40 windows at a time, and it was sort of nutty. But what we would do with parties, with big receptions and tours, is that we would offer optional tour times, and then people could come and go or visit or mingle or whatever. And maybe this won't work, but and then there's like a tour at this time and there's a tour at this time, and you pick one of the two tours to participate in, and maybe tour number 1 is floors 1 through 5, and tour number 2, you know what I mean? Like you can kind of do it that way, and that way at least people get a taste of part of it and can do it. The other thing I was going to say, if we decided that it was too complicated to accomplish a meeting and a tour like in person in the same sitting, I think the idea of a highlight reel, some maybe some surprise guest artist speakers, that could be fun. We are all pretty big fan people of our local artists, and there's some big names that that could be really fun.
Too bad you're not doing Angela 2 Stars in December, right?
But what I was going to say is that and Jeff, you can ask what people think about this, but it could be really fun. I think what we've done in the past when people have left and we haven't been able to say have a goodbye party is that Janae drove around and delivered gifts to everybody, and we could have like a little December swag bag for all of the commissioners that includes like either an alcoholic or non-alcoholic cocktail to cheers with. Maybe a fancy little snack, maybe that year in review that I'm talking about and the work plan or whatever. I mean, it's kind of nerdy, but we are.
So I know we're close on time. So let us do this. So if you guys are okay with it, giving us time, right? You're like, hey, you have 45 minutes. I'll thank you, Mary, for your update, because I'll go back and say, hey, this is what Mary, her team is doing. She's offered to help. So if we still want to do something like that, we can use it. But know that there are we didn't know that there's some events coming up. So yeah, like I said, we were thinking about some spoken word. So if you guys are okay with giving us like 45 minutes, then we'll come back by the next exec meeting in November with an agenda that we can start to look at and start to, you guys can react to. Does that work?
Yes. And I just realized the overtime, and I'm sorry if people have to go. I understand. Otherwise, thank you, Jeff, though, that's great. That is exciting.
Yeah, if you could just send me some times you could meet Jeff. That would be
Okay.
great.
Okay.
And Jeff, thanks for showing up to this meeting tonight in Vegas. I don't know.
Yeah.
And thanks for getting the water on Saturday.
Oh, you're welcome. No problem. Yeah.
I gotta hand it to you.
No, I used to do, it's just getting back into traveling and then having meetings at night and stuff like that. I just hadn't been doing it, but that's been my whole life, basically, before last year. So, no big deal. Thanks.
Everyone else was doing.
That's all I had.
Okay, great. So let's quickly just move through the Public Art Advisory Committee. I sat out probably the biggest decision making of the year. But Mary, do you want to provide any quick updates about that at all, or is that something you want to provide when we meet?
Yeah, so the panel selected projects this year. It was really hard. They have funded a project in the Upper Harbor. They have funded a project at Hiawatha and Lake, which is really good, because that area of the city basically burned down, and that underbridge environment is like the worst public environment in the city practically.
Yep.
And they also funded East Phillips Park and North Commons Park. And so they had 17 really fabulous ideas, and some of them are projects that can be postponed until the next round. Yeah, and I haven't actually even announced this to the artists or the departments yet, so please don't share this broadly, because Mohab and I are going to call the department people and tell them ourselves, because it tends to be people's feelings get hurt when their project wasn't got selected.
Oh, sure, that's just
so
best practices. We don't announce winners until.
Yeah, so I know this is technically a public meeting, but nobody from the
That's okay. Yeah,
they're not going to watch it, and we will. Moab and I are meeting tomorrow to kind of figure out who's going to call who. But I'm really excited about all of these sites, and they're great opportunities. So the next step is for me to figure out who the project managers are going to be for these projects, and then get going on them.
Will you be announcing these at the general MAC meeting or not?
Yeah. I can announce I can announce them. Yeah.
Okay.
So
can you give us a slide or two on each one as well? I mean, could we take a little bit of time at the meeting to learn about these?
If you have time, I'm happy to give you a slide or two on each one. They're right now they're just sites, so it's not.
Yeah.
It's a picture of a location, right? Or the park board has master plan documents. We can pull something from those too.
Maybe just make us
so there isn't work yet that's been.
No, they're just proposals, so there's no visuals. I don't think, Lucy, is what you're saying, right, Mary? So maybe could you just make one slide that says the location and the artist so that we can just visually see?
How about one slide with a map as the picture?
Yeah,
sure, something like that.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you for doing that. Okay, really quickly, exec committee. Clearly, I need to get some draft work plan information to you. Mostly, we will serve as support for the work plan for all the groups. And we will also continue to agenda set. And I'll draft up some of what I think this group will want to have, but we don't need to have that right away. But I'll take that, and then I'll ask for your feedback via email, so we can work a little bit via email, hopefully, just to get your feedback. And then when we meet, we'll discuss it more. So just so you know that. And I guess for me right now, I think our goals right now is to try to finish up the year accomplishing what our ALTs wish to accomplish, being able to get to a formally approved 2022 work plan, which will require us to do it, probably put in a little extra time with our groups, or not, maybe the same amount of time, I'm not sure. I also wanted to ask if we want to do a retreat. And if we do, I think a little more thinking needs to go into it. Like, what is it that we're trying to accomplish with a retreat? And maybe we don't even ask these questions quite yet until we get the results of our survey, because that might actually elicit some, some inspiring information that we could consider. I don't know.
I would also wait until we know about whether the new department gets funded. I mean, that's going to have a big impact on what we do. So maybe it's first quarter next year.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of down with that as a decision actually right now, just because there's so much gray. And there is clear work that we need to accomplish and will take some time. So yeah, quarter one retreat. And maybe that's something in our work, maybe that's something that we can try to at least get a little better handle on what it is throughout this last quarter, what that looks like and what we're going to want to accomplish. The year in review opportunity, I'm gonna after we get our survey results, if we get some good, responses of things people are really proud of that they accomplished, I'm gonna just see if Ahava would be interested in formatting it to look similar to our one page for our commissioners. Maybe she doesn't have time. Maybe she doesn't want to do it. I know I could do it in Canva, or maybe we can get someone. But anyway, I'll take that one on too, and we can decide what we want to do with that.
Joan,
yeah.
I don't know if you saw in the chat that Lana had a way to ask that question to get the year in. So you might want to look in the chat before you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't see that. Perfect. That actually was great. Okay. And I think just kind of within this conversation, I'm kind of wrapping up our quarter four considerations, to be honest, like, getting everybody motivated and working towards making that work plan, accomplishing what it is they feel they need to accomplish for end of year. There also is some budget considerations, but we can't really talk about that until we know what our goals are. So a lot of times we'll finalize a work plan, and then in January we'll talk about budget and give Mary something a little bit more formal. It's never a big budget, obviously, but there is one each year. Any thoughts about that, Mary? Is there anything else that we need to do for that? Can that come in January, just like a budget considerations for the year after we finalize the work plan?
I think that would be good. I think we will know in January whether or not the Arts Commission is still in CPED in January, or whether or not the Arts Commission is in the new department. And then we can talk to, if they're still in CPED, we can talk to Andrea.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't know who we'll talk to, but we might have somebody we can talk to. Who knows?
All right, and then I have been doing some minor tweaks to the October agenda, which kind of follows the exec agenda. It's just adapted a little bit for the general meeting. So basically, it's the guest presenter, the Poet Laureate work group. Lana will provide some information. We will request the action of approval for the Poet Laureate work group. The third item is the survey results summary. Hopefully we have that. The fourth item is the proposed cadence and priorities for the 2020 work plan. We will discuss that. And then the last is just all of the ALT updates. So each chair or speaker will give whatever items they wish to share and prioritize at that time. And that is it. Is there anything that we're missing for October? Okay. All right. I'm so sorry we went over time, you guys, but thank you. This is a really great discussion and really helpful. I especially appreciate your help with this, with your questions, and kind of thinking also about like how we're advancing this work plan and intersecting with department development. I know it's thorny, so it's always nice to talk about it a little bit more and get a little clearer about it. So, and again, Jeff, thank you so much for representing Access and considering making December a celebration. If we get all of this accomplished, we certainly deserve to celebrate. I'll be excited for that. Anything else?
I just wanted to do one quick thank you to Mary for Saturday's dedication, and to you, Joan, for being a fabulous MC. I mean, I just have to say it was so nice I saw everybody on exec, not just in the virtuals. It was amazing and it, you know, really inspiring to see into fruition like all the hard work that takes 7 years in the making for that beautiful, beautiful pedestrian bridge. And it made me feel like a really positive connection to the Arts Commission. So thank you for everybody who made that event such a
Yeah,
success.
and we actually got to see Mary in action when someone tagged the bridge that she had she had perfectly colored spray paint to go over it to
I hope you appreciated I took a picture of that, Mary. I hope you noticed that that
That's
was
just
right
a
after
boss.
you
You're
I did notice
just a
that
That
you
was
boss.
got a picture of
awesome.
that. I did notice. I just want to thank you guys, first of all, for all your support that day. And Joan, you were the best MC. You were just great. You're in trouble now, Joan.
Well,
I'm going to be calling on you again. But also, I mean, yeah, I really think it's really good for the Arts Commission to be front and center at these events because, first of all, the Arts Commission, you know, made the public art program happen, right? I mean, not just, you know, getting the ordinance, but the Arts Commission actually created the public art program and lobbied the city council to have one. But, you know, it's also a good time for all of the constituents to be reminded that there is an Arts Commission. And you guys have played such an important role in the public art process through all the approvals and everything that you should be front and center at the party. So thank you so much for all your help.
I was just like, that was some serious rock star level, like people. Like there was so many legacy community leaders and artists. I was like, no pressure, but it was beautiful, and it was just the joy and the
People were so happy. People did not leave. They just stayed on the bridge.
That's what you want. That's fantastic. Well, yeah, great. Hats off to everybody. So that was really great, and good job, Mary. All right, everybody, have a wonderful evening. And let me know if I've missed anything. My door's always open. Jeff, travel safe. Have fun.
Yeah.
Okay, have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye all. Thank you.